Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Today I have a really cool knife to share with you, and we're going to be taking a look at my custom Typhoon, which is made by Brian Nadeau, and his company is Sharp by Design, and I believe the website is sharpbydesign.com, but I'll put links of everything below. So there's a lot to talk about, and so little time to do it. I want to try to keep all my videos under 15 minutes at this point. So without further ado, here is the case that it comes in, and it has this unique nameplate attached to every one that he makes. So obviously Typhoon is the model, and he also put Blade Magazine's Best Tactical Folder of 2014, as this was named the Best Tactical Folder at Blade Show 2014. He was also named the Best New Maker at Blade Show 2014, and also Best New Maker at the USN Gathering 2014. So it's been a great year for him. He's received a lot of well-deserved recognition. So the frame is made out of 6AL4V titanium, and the blade itself is made out of CPM S35VN. So let's go ahead and pull this out, and let's take a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and do the specs. I'll try to do my best to give an overall impression. The problem is there's just so much to talk about, and then I will get into the details. So, specs. Obviously this one is the Tonto variation. He also has a drop point, a Bowie style. He now has a harpoon that's also a dealer exclusive. And this is the handle pattern that I went with, although he has quite a few different handle patterns that he offers among his custom knives. And yeah, so here's my configuration, and I think thus far it's the only one exactly like this. There was another one with the same handle and colors but didn't have the grooves in the blade, so each one's a little bit different. Now specs. The blade length is about 4 inches, handle length is about 5, giving the total length of about 9 inches. The weight on this particular knife is 5.35 ounces on my scale, although it feels much lighter in hand. It's on the scale, it's one thing; in hand it feels completely different. It feels like a 4-ounce knife, and I'm not the only one who handled it to basically say that. So the handle width in this direction is just 1 inch, which means that it carries tremendously well in the pocket. And then the handle thickness in this portion at the widest section is 0.64 inches, but with the amount of contouring that has gone into it, as you can see, it fills the hand very well, and it feels very comfortable. So that's excellently executed. All right, so overall, it's an amazingly well-built custom knife. And custom knife isn't a designation of quality, it's a designation of process, but this one is amazingly built. I can find no flaws with it. It's absolutely perfect. It has very unique CNC handles, beautiful color, a beautiful hand rub blade, varying finishes and so forth. Just an amazing piece. So I can't really say enough good things about it. I'm really happy to have it, and I've really enjoyed having it. And it's actually, I've had it for a number of weeks now. I've just kind of been slow to do the review because I wanted to make sure that I could essentially do justice to this knife in a review format, and it's been on my mind for quite some time. I've actually had to think about it and kind of figure out what I wanted to do in the review. But anyways, let's talk real quick about Brian. So that was my overall, that's the specs, overall impressions. But let's kind of talk about Brian and where he's at right now. So this is one of his custom variations, and he has been making them for about a year now, I would say. I started following him, gosh, right when he got on Instagram, it seems like, but it took me a while to kind of warm up to essentially the price point, certainly not to the designs. I've always really liked his designs. It just took me personally a while to get to that point in my collection where I was willing to spend that kind of money, but it's certainly worth it. Now, he has 2 months left of custom orders, and his books are currently closed, and they're going to be, again, more Typhoons, different configurations, blade shapes, and so forth. And then he is starting the work on his field grade knives. Now, the field grade knives Again, they're completely made by him in-house. It's just there's less CNC machining in them. They're a bit more, I don't want to say plain, but they're not as fancy. You don't have the same number of options and so forth. And it's going to kind of be more of kind of like a rugged, everyday carry type of knife. It'll allow him to make them quicker and get them into the hands of more people. And they're coming in at a different price point. The Typhoon start at about $700, and his field grades, I believe, are going for $550. Although don't quote me on those prices. That is not mine to set. So, but I think that's just about right. But actually $750 for these, and then $550 for the field grades. So he's going to start work on those. Again, a few different handle and blade shape options. They're going to be all the same cutouts and so forth. Not quite as contoured, I don't believe, but he is a perfectionist, so I believe I can probably say for certain that everyone that leaves his shop will be absolutely perfect. After he's done with all the field grades, he's going to start on his next model, which will be a 3-inch model, so it'll be a little bit smaller. And he just said he'll have more options as far as inlays and customization and so forth, but that's all I can really tell you. We'll just have to wait and let him get through the field grades first before we pester him on the next model. So anyways, that's kind of where he's at. If you're not already on the list for the Typhoon, you may or may not be out of luck. It's hard to say if he'll do them again in the future, but obviously he has a timetable and kind of a plan for the entire next year, it seems like. So if you're already on the books, you'll have one of these coming. Then there's the field grades, which a lot of people were able to get on, and then there will be the new model some point in 2015. Who knows? We'll have to see when that comes about. All right, now let's get into the specifics on the knife. As you can see, this has a beautiful hand rub satin finish. You have, I have some Tonto grooves the grooves in the Tonto blade that I requested, and those have a bead blasted finish, and then the jimping also has the same bead blasted finish, giving it a really cool two-tone look. The hand rub satin is absolutely perfect. Everything is just, I mean, there's no flaws on the blade at all. Grind lines are nice and clean. The cutting edge is even and tremendously sharp on both sides. This is a kind of a thinner tip. As you can see, this isn't a super robust, let's stab it into trees type of tip. This is a very purposeful, I will go into soft squishy objects with no slowdown whatsoever type of tip. So, you know, I don't think people would abuse these in this price point, but this is not a tip just to go stabbing things about. But it works really well for an EDC roll. Again, very sharp, very purposeful, very beautiful. So that's the blade. Jimping up top. That's what it looks like. Offers a tremendous amount of traction. I don't find it sharp at all. I think it's perfectly executed. Gives you a ton of grip. So the pivot here, a nice custom pivot, nice and clean. You've got kind of the dots around there, and then a Torx cutout. It's the same on both sides. Beautiful pivot. And then the handle, this is really where we come into where Brian excels and what his capabilities allow him to do. So he has a background in R&D. He used to work for a knife company designing knives. So obviously a lot of experience with CNCing, with the mechanics of designing the knife. Obviously he has certainly a good eye for style as well. I mean, it's a beautiful knife. But his you know, leveraging his abilities and his technology, he's able to create these beautiful patterns. You have these diagonal grooves here. You have a diamond pattern. They've been anodized different colors. They're absolutely perfect. No flaws whatsoever. And you know, there might be a custom maker or two out there who'd be capable of doing this by hand, but the amount of time it would take would certainly be counterproductive. And if they were ever to do something like this by hand, it would be an auction piece, and then they would probably say that took way too long. And that's just my thoughts. I could be wrong, but again, you know, for the most part in the hobby, it seems like when we think of smart technology, be it CNC or water jet, we look at it as a time-saving measure and even a cost-saving measure. And perhaps in some level we associate it with laziness, but what Brian has done is he has taken that technology and he's added value to the knife. He's done something that other people can't do won't do, and certainly not to the same degree and perfection that the machine can do it. But that's not to take anything away from him, because obviously he had to tell the machine what to do in a language that I certainly don't speak. So, and yeah, so again, the handles are really what I think sets him apart. Just what he's able to do that others can or won't. Here's the backspacer, kind of a gear pattern backspacer. It functions, it's beautiful, it functions perfectly well. It doesn't offer any traction, it's a bit more inset than that, but it's the same color as the handles, and again, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful addition to the knife. So, lock bar cutout is nice and flowy here. It's not kind of your straight lines or anything. It's an attractive element. The pattern, as you can see, it goes onto the lock bar and helps it to essentially integrate better into the handle and to hide. You do have a stainless steel lock insert here. This knife is absolutely rock solid. I mean, incredibly so. Now, one of the complaints that Brian gets a lot is that guys say that the lock bar tension is too strong. And I'll admit, when I first got this knife, this lock bar tension was crazy. But after 2 weeks of playing with it, opening it and closing it and working the lock bar a bit, it is now perfect. It's still strong, but it's definitely manageable. And something that he used to do is he used to actually, when he first started making these, is he would break the knife in himself before he sent it out by flipping it, opening it, and closing it. And so guys, would get it already broken in. Thankfully, he stopped doing that. And, it's nice that he did, but it's good that he stopped, because obviously that takes a lot of time, and it means that people have to wait longer before they can actually get their knives. So, time-saving measure. But it's perfectly centered blade in here, perfect lockup. He does use what's called a detent shoe as opposed to a detent ball. And what that does is it creates a greater surface area, so you have better blade retention and obviously better flipping action. It's also supposed to have greater longevity, but it's a bit different. And since you do have a greater surface area, while this flips tremendously well, this isn't the type of knife where you drop it and it falls on itself, Not to say that it's not smooth, but you're going to have to shake that in pretty hard, so just normal closing it. So that's a slight difference, but the Wieners and Steel guys actually did a video with Brian at one of the East Coast shows where he had one of the Typhoons apart and he was showing the internals. I'll put a link below, but I would definitely recommend checking that out if you want more in-depth information on his knives and how he makes them and what makes them unique. But the detent shoe is certainly one area. The other is probably the pocket clip integration. It actually goes down, it goes into a cutout here, and it's held in place by the backspacer. Completely rock solid. Pocket clip is made out of hardened stainless steel, and it functions tremendously well. I know a lot of guys are not thrilled about the fact they can't get a crazy, Timascus or whatever clip, but Brian really wanted to put the time, energy, and beauty into making these handles the best that he could. And certainly keeping them as affordable as they can possibly be. And I get that. I totally respect that. And, I have no qualms with the clip as it is, especially considering the way that it's integrated, which is certainly unique. So, gosh, what else is there to talk about? Again, it's just a beautifully made knife. It's perfect in every way. Brian is a perfectionist. He's not happy with every knife that he sends out, but I have been over this with a fine-tooth comb, and I can find no flaws whatsoever. It does everything I want it to and more, and it does it just tremendously well. One thing I really like that I failed to mention is that he took the time to even make the flipper tab attractive. I mean, as you can see, we've got these beautiful chamfered sides, the way that it cuts in here at the bottom, and it just makes the pocket clip just so cool. Only marking on the knife is just his logo here, Brian Nadeau, BN, and it's only on the flipper tab. It doesn't distract. I think it actually adds beauty to the knife. It adds something. So, again, as you can tell, obviously I'm kind of enamored with the knife, and I think it does, again, it's awesome. I hope you guys get the chance to handle one. Hopefully you're on the books for the last 2 months here, or you have a field grade coming, which I have no doubt will be perfect as well. Just not as dressy as this particular one. So Anyways, thanks so much for watching. One quick size comparison before I run out of time here. Here we have the Quayback Mid-Tech. These two are essentially the same size and even have the same form factor in terms of kind of the slimness and the shape of the knife. But this one's obviously quite a bit heavier, and this is a Mid-Tech, and this is a custom. So anyways, hopefully I've been able to do my best to convey the kind of the beauty of this knife, how well it's made, and just again, the unique and interesting ways that he's been able to add value with CNC technology and just create these amazing handle patterns. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate your viewership, and hopefully I will continue to bring more interesting videos your way. So take care.